Hello my dudes, this is Kadima with another Dragon's Dogma 2 video, this time using my archer build, and I'm gonna give you all the details on how to use
What
archers
business have you
correctly.
here?
Excuse me. I'm sorry about that, guys. Anyway, best way to show
Boy,
you
looking totally
my
too
skills and the
overthinky
build that I'm currently
changes on a
using is to
whim.
talk to this guy so I can show you what skills I'm having equipped and what's the best way to go on about being an archer in Dragon's Dogma 2. So first things first, weapon skills. I'm using manifold shot, the reason being that when you are not using steady shot, which is the ability that allows you to manually target your enemies, manifold shot is actually the best way to automatically attack your enemies by using the quick loose button and using the L1 to use the weapon skills instead of manually using it. When manually using, which you will be doing about 80% of the time for the best effectiveness possible, you want to hold R1 and you can always use manifold shot if you want, but when I am doing the manual aiming, I tend to go with Tempest shot, and that's the reason why I have both equipped on my skill slots. Heavenly shot, this is basically the ultimate skill. This is the skill that you will be using the most to finish off your enemies, and that's the best way to go about it. When it comes to my last skill, I'm using erupting shot, making the best out of the explosive arrows, which you get quite a lot through the course of the game. I never ever bought any, and I have at least 100 in my stash. But if you have more of the other shots, you can always use the other shots. Also, it is important to make use of the saying "know thy enemy." By that, I mean that if you know you are about to fight targets that are weak to fire, erupting shot or incendiary shot is the way to go. If you are about to fight other types of enemies, you might want to go with wrenching shots and noxious shot and making the most out of poisoning your enemies and exploiting their weaknesses. Another thing I recommend is one of your pawns to be a mage. I would recommend your main pawn so you can actually set up the skills that you need correctly without relying on other people's mages. And the way to go with your pawn is to give him an affinity. I recommend ice. Fire, I don't recommend because you'll be using the explosive shots, so you don't really need the fire affinity. I recommend ice simply because uh, the great majority of enemies in the game are either weak to fire or ice. So if you have fire on your arrows with explosive shot, if you have ice affinity on your bow, with your mage giving you that buff, you'll be covering 80% of the enemy's weaknesses and you'll be good to go. Another thing you want to have on your mage is, of course, the heals, and you want to have the Agent Succor, which is the ultimate ability for the mage, which will basically allow to more stamina recovery while you are dishing out those arrows onto your targets. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the core skills. You have the leaping punt, which you can use. I rarely use this because I try not to be so close to my targets, being an archer and all that. The parting shot, it's basically the same thing, but doing an arrow instead. The swift knock, it just basically enables the user to knock arrows more quickly when using loose or steady shot. It's just basically an improvement on your knock speed. And the puncture dart draws the bowstring to its absolute limit before firing and makes aiming more difficult but allows arrows to pierce targets with greater impact. Basically, you have to press and while reading steady shot, then release R1 to fire. It just it's a core skill. You can use this. I don't use this much, but it's good to know that it's there. For the augments, this is a thing that I want to talk about is what to use to make the best out of your archers. Now, one thing you can use is the ambuscade, which basically increases the damage dealt by your attacks when targets are not in battle stance. Now, you could potentially feel tempted to use this because you know that as long as your target is not in battle stance, you will be doing increased damage. The problem is, the moment you land your first arrow, they are in battle stance. So this augment will no longer be doing anything. So you only get the benefit of using this on your very first enemy, on your very first shot. So if you are attacking groups of enemies, the moment you attack the first one, yes, you do extra damage, but then nothing comes out of this. So I don't recommend using this. I recommend going with something else instead. Endurance is always a good to go on every single build because it increases your maximum stamina. Radiance, I mean, you don't really have to use this. I simply use it because there's nothing else that I want to use for this build. So I like to be able to see properly in the dark. Lethality, this is a must. It increases the damage dealt when striking a target's vitals. Avidity, again, it is up to you. If you want to be a bit more nimble when you are climbing cliffs and scaling foes and other surfaces a bit more quickly, feel free to use this. I don't see the benefit because being an archer and with the right party setup, you don't really need to be scaling anything. So I don't see the point. Metal, it's up to you. If you feel like you are very squishy, you can always go with this, but this is a fighter ability. Um, if you only have access if you have unlocked the vocation. Um, Provocation, again, it's a fighter one that you don't really need. The Thew, again, I use this because there's nothing else that I want to use, and it just enables me to carry additional weight, meaning that even with my kind of heavy armor, because the armor I'm currently using is a bit heavy, I can still move about quite quickly, and I don't get affected by weight that much. Dominion doesn't really make sense for this build because you're not going to lift up and pin down anything. Diligence, you don't really need this because if you're down or crawling, I mean, yes, it helps getting up faster, but you shouldn't be getting down or crawling because you should be far away from your target. You are an archer. You shouldn't be that close. Subtlety from the thieves doesn't really matter here. Poise reduces stamina considerably strongly with a foe's grip. I mean, there are better choices out there. Vigor doesn't make sense for this build. Now, Verve that you get from the thief augments your strength. That one does make sense because the damage that you will be doing is strength based. So if you can increase it ever so slightly, it's a go. Vitality, again, it's up to you. You get this from the warrior vocation. If you feel like you're too squishy, you can always go with a bit more health. Impact doesn't make sense. Pertinacity doesn't make sense here because you're not going to be looking to break through opponents' cards with this build. Asperity, this is all from the sorcerer, doesn't really make sense here. The ones from these other vocations don't really make sense either. With Zeal, you can use Zeal because it will reduce the stamina consumed when performing a weapon skill, and I recommend that you do that, and I will replace the Radiance with Zeal. The Dynamism, which is basically reduces the amount on which weight affects your movement speed. Again, you can use either this or Thew. It's up to you. I rather use Thew, but if you have dynamism and you think it's better off for you, go for it. And this is basically the skills that I'm using, as you can see. Disparity, it's basically the one you get from the sorcerer, which increases the likelihood of inflicting debilitations with your attacks, which is the one that I was forgetting. I'm sorry about that. This is only because with the explosive arrows that I'm using, it is more likely that I'm going to explode, that my explosions are going to caught the enemy on fire, and therefore that's why this is useful. As for the equipment that I'm currently using, again, I'm using the best bow in the game, which is the one you get with the Dragon Forged vendor. For that, you need to at least be on the last stages of the game or be on New Game Plus. Currently, it's giving me 786 strength. As you can see, it's not forging Dragon Fire just yet. I ran out of worm crystals. As for the armor, I go with two things: whatever looks good and whatever is affected in terms of defense. These are the best armor pieces you can get. I get from the Dragon Forge. And the cape, I mean the legend mantle, it's basically just for the style. I think it looks cool. One thing that I want to talk about is the rings. I use Ring of Triumph because it boosts everything: health, stamina, and the maximum amount of weight that you can carry. And I recommend that you use this one. The second ring, it's entirely up to you. You can use the ring that allows more damage the closer you are to the target. You can use the ring that increases your damage based on your equipment load, on the weight you are carrying. I find the ring of vehemence a bit more um, appealing here because it would basically says the wearer's attacks are more likely to stagger and knock down foes. Now, with the arrows, you are not going to knock down a lot of
The
foes
so-called
because most
forbidden magic
times, and
research lab
especially
appears
when
to have
killing
been
smaller
constructed rather
enemies, they'll be
recently.
dead by the time the ring
Indeed,
would do
and the
anything. But
researchers
when
employed
fighting
there
bigger
are as
enemies, and if
tight-lipped
you
as they
are
come.
aiming at their
It
weak
is all
spots
very secretive.
correctly, this will
I
give you
wonder
the
what the
most
citizenry
benefit.
make of it.
Now, one thing I want to show you is how to make the most out of your archer by using the skills correctly. And the best way to do so is by giving you an example, and I'll have to get out of town to do so. Uh, Hopefully the grief won't attack me straight away, but if it does, it's not a problem. It's actually a good thing that if he does attack me, because I get to show you the skills in action. In any case, uh, here's what I want to show
I
you.
am honored to
When you are
lead your
using
side in this
your
battle.
archer, is he here? I think he's below me. Hold on, because if he is below me, we are going to have a bit of a conversation. Yes, he is. Explosive shot. Aim at his
A
bum.
formidable foe.
At least you get to see firsthand how to use the
Strength must be
archer.
manifold our own. We shall have to watch his command.
Let my magic imbue your weapon with the
Try to
fury
aim
of
at the
the
weak
elements.
spots, and in this case, the Griffin's weak spots tends to be their face.
Don't waste
Unfortunately,
this
he's a
chance.
little bit stuck
Press that
and
far
over
advantage.
under the bridge.
Strike
As
fast
you can
and
see, I'm
true,
aiming at the
and our
face.
glory shall
I'm gonna
shine.
place an explosive arrow there. I'm gonna go with manifold shot just so I can get a few arrows in quick succession, and he is already dead. I don't even need to use the heavenly shot because this guy is already gone. Oh, and I got an achievement. Anyway, it couldn't be more perfect for you guys to see why you are going to use steady shot most of the time. Steady shot basically allows you to manually aim at wherever it is you want to throw your arrows at. So this is, again, 80% of the time, this is the way to play the game. You are going to manually aim, and you also have access to your skills. Just by holding R1, you can go with manifold shot, you can go with tempest shot, you can go with erupting shot, you can go with heavenly shot if you want. I don't recommend doing that now because I'm going to completely run out of stamina. The other option to go with using the bow is just by simply quick firing by pressing square. As you can see on the bottom right corner, my arrows just go. The only problem
Time we
here
press
is
go,
that
wouldn't you say,
the
Master?
the game does not aim at weak spots automatically. You will only be hitting weak spots if you manually aim at the weak spot. If you are using quick shot, the game will just aim at the closest target and that's it. Now, I'm not saying this is completely useless. It actually isn't. And I'm going to give you an example on when this can be actually quite useful. So if I come down this road, uh, unfortunately the enemies might be dead because I was here recently.
Unless
But if
I
I
am much
continue down, there's
mistaken,
a few more here.
we have
Right,
cause to
you see
visit a
those
place not
RPs?
far from
I
here.
can manually aim
It was worth
at the RP
considering.
from here.
No sense
And there you
letting
go,
Ken
I'm doing
gain the
damage,
upper
the
hand.
RP is taking my
Very
arrows, that's
pretty,
all
that's
good.
the word,
But
as they
when
say.
the
I
RPs are
sustain
flying
it's yours
over
to
your
rule.
head, it's much harder to aim because if they are moving about in circles, it's complicated to get the aim right. So this is when doing L1 and quick shooting, it's much easier and it will make your game much harder. So as you can see, I'm just using quick shots here with my manifold shot. I'm just destroying RPs as quickly as I can. So this is when I think this particular usage of the
That was
bow
superb,
makes
Arisen.
sense. So this is the way to go with using your archer to its most effectiveness. You can go with a front kick, which is great for
We have
enemies
found the
that go
turret.
close to you. It will not stun them and it
Sure
will
we'll
not
find a
throw them
purpose
down,
for
but
it in due time.
it will kick them away from you just enough for you to get your distance back and start dishing arrows while you take a few steps back. And that's
Perhaps
the way
this
to
will
go.
seem a little
Another
costly,
thing I want to
but
mention is your
different
party. I
masters play
mentioned your
different
main
pawns.
pawn being a
Right
mage
here
because it will
myself
be the one
prefer to
providing
have these
support with
strings for
buffing you,
allies.
giving you your
Extra for
heals,
arrows.
and also giving you that stamina recovery with the ultimate for the mage. But another thing you want to have in your party is a fighter, because this guy is going to be the damage sponge for your team. This guy will be taking all the damage. He will be the one to go to get enemies' attentions. I'm going to give you an example of how important this guy is. So if I'm going to go down this road
Material
and there are
today.
some enemies down here,
I shan't deny they have
you'll
their
see that
uses.
I'm going to approach just enough so I can send him on his way to the enemies. So as I say go, you see both my thief and my fighter are going to tank the enemies. And in the meantime, all I have to do is throw my arrows all the way from here. That guy's already dead. But as you can see, I'm landing my arrows from here and I'm trying to aim at the weak spots. In case of goblins, the weak spots just so happen to be their heads. And again, as I'm here, my fighter and my thief are keeping them busy, and I'm just doing my little arrows from a distance. And everything is dead. Now, this guy managed to approach me. As you can see, I can just quickly shoot an arrow, and I take a few steps back. I'm good to go. Well, in this case, this guy is too close. I don't really need to aim with a steady shot. But as you can see, my quick fires don't really do... they don't really target the weak spots. You will only be doing weak spots if you, again, manually aim at them. Now, as I said, it is important to have a fighter in your party because he will be the damage sponge. The fourth pawn,
Shall I take us
it's
there?
entirely up to you. You can get another archer if you want, you can get a sorcerer, you can get a thief, and you can get a warrior. I recommend anything that is good to damage. I like to use a thief because the thieves will be quick of foot. They'll be going around enemies. They'll jump from enemy to enemy,
Our
doing as much
respective
damage as
abilities
possible.
are unique as well.
And also another thing that helps is that these guys tend to have, if you look for the right ones, the plunder. And plunder is good because it will allow you to get some loot before you even killed your targets. So this is a very good option to go for.
I see it as a
In any case,
gladly.
I'm going to give you a
We are
couple
well
more
poised
examples
to
of fighting
supplement each other's
griffins and
strength.
another enemy, so you guys can see what I'm on about. As for my stats and my levels, so you guys understand what's going on, I'm currently level 78. Um, my total strength is at 786. My defense is 678. That's why I didn't take that much damage when I got attacked. But again, if you are still on a low level, you can still have a very reliable archer if you use it the right way. In any case, thank you guys for watching so far, but let me give you a couple more examples on how to use the archer to its best effectiveness. So while I was completing some of the quests, I ran into this big fairy enemy. As you can see, he's got 3 HP bars, and he was actually surrounded by those lizard guys. Fair enough. Poor guy was actually being destroyed by everyone around him. But as you can see, I'm going with the Tempest shots just to kill the little one first, and then I change for my explosive arrows so I can set this guy on fire. And I think that's the best way to start the fight. As you can see, Gandalf has decided to use the stamina recovery spell, so that is good to go. And I'm gonna go with the Heavenly Shot, and as you can see, the Heavenly Shot is about to destroy an entire HP bar. The only problem with using the Heavenly Shot, as you just saw, is that you completely run out of stamina, you become vulnerable, so I strongly recommend that you actually use it as a finisher. I should have waited a little bit more before I actually used it in this situation, but because I was just at a good enough distance, I was clear to go, and that's what I did. Now, on to the next example. I was actually fighting the Griffin earlier, and as you can see, he has this strong belief that being under the bridge is an amazing thing. But in any case, I got his attention. As you can see, my bow is already buffed with the ice from my Gandalf. Now here's the funny part. This is when I change to the explosive arrows. Again, I'm trying to aim at his head because the head is the weak spot. And even if you don't hit the head with the arrow, the explosion from the arrows will affect the head, so it will do increased damage. What I want you to notice is his HP bar every time one of those arrows explodes. Just look at it. Every time the arrow explodes, it's just a tremendous amount of damage, and that's what you are seeing on your screen right now. In any case, I go with the Tempest shots just for the quick damage. I wasn't even aiming at the weak spot like I should, but as you can see, the damage output is actually very, very good. And you'd have nothing to fear using this archer build as long as you keep your distance and you use it correctly. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave any opinions or suggestions in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Please subscribe if you haven't just yet. Take care. Cheerio!